G'day, Dutch GP ticket sales are down big time. Normally this event will be sold out months in advance, not the case this year. What's going on? Don't expect a full house on Sunday. At this stage, there are still plenty of tickets available in almost every stand. And in fact, if you wanted tickets, I believe it's cheaper to go to the resale sites than it is to buy online from the official sources. There is far less demand for this race than in past years. A lot of people saying it's because Max isn't winning. That may certainly have some sort of bearing on it. A lot of other people saying, hey, we've seen it once or twice. It's something that we'll save our money on. And next year being Zandvoort's final race ever, well, don't say ever, but for a long time, I think we'll probably expect a sellout then. People who've perhaps missed out think, right, I don't get a chance to come here for some time, so maybe they'll buy a ticket. Some big money floating around for this team, McLaren, at the moment, because Mastercard, where are they? Up there, are tipping in $100 million next year, US dollars too, they're the more valuable ones, to sponsor this team. Now, what do they get for that money? Because that is a heck of a lot of money. They'll get big signage on the car, no doubt. They'll get lots of tickets to the races for their big clients, their big merchants to come along here and experience being part of a team. There'll be lots of activations around various Grand Prix. And of course, they will get access to the drivers, and that is a very powerful thing. And they will get their name in the team name. It will be known as McLaren Mastercard. Now, a number of people are not too happy about this, and there's plenty of comments online. Things like, lame, every team is a sellout. This is getting ridiculous. The NASCARification of F1. But when it comes to a team having a sponsor's name in them, the likes of Visa Cash App, Oracle Red Bull, no one calls them Visa Cash App. They call them VCarb. They call them Red Bull. You certainly won't hear David Croft saying Lando Norris overtaking in his McLaren Mastercard. It'll just be the McLaren. Maybe some publications will use the full name, but in general, I don't think having your name in the team name is that big a deal because so few people actually use it. Mastercard, though, will get excited because they will see their name in all the official publications. But having a sponsor's name in a team name typically just flies under the radar in most instances. Another case in point, Atlassian Williams. I've never even heard anyone say that. It is just Williams. So for those people getting a bit upset, I think you should probably take to heart the fact that the team is getting a lot of money, and that'll help them in running their business, perhaps even guarantee them another World Championship next year. As is so often the case here at Zandvoort, it's raining. It's raining heavily, so much so that the tunnel that goes underneath the track flooded. It happens a lot during heavy downpours, and it leads to pedestrians having no way of crossing under that track without having to go through 40 centimetres of water. So the circuit gets out these vehicles and ferries people backwards and forwards. So a problem solved, and quite frankly, that'll very quickly go down once it stops raining. I'm dressed very much for comfort here today with the rain jacket on, but earlier Fernando Alonso came in looking sparkling in this boss outfit. He took a few minutes to prepare himself at the car before making the long walk in front of all the world's media. And it's great exposure for the German fashion brand. Great to see Valtteri Bottas at the track today. Of course, he was crowned as a Cadillac driver for 2026 earlier this week, along with Sergio Perez. I did want to have a chat with him, but I just couldn't get him on his own because once he walked down the stairs, and it was bucketing down with rain, he walked into the Mercedes hospitality suite and he was greeted with a huge round of applause by all those inside, and I thought that was a lovely thing. Still on the subject of rain, Lewis Hamilton's security guard had just a shirt on and was standing out in the rain waiting for the great man to go to a press conference. Soaked, absolutely soaked. And I said, why don't you get an umbrella? And he said, well, because the moment Lewis comes out, I'm going to have to drive on the scooter behind him and I'm going to have to hold his umbrella. I can't hold two. That is devotion. Now, Carlos Sainz, has he had his hair dyed? A number of you saying on an Insta post of mine that it looks lighter. And I did speak to a couple of people from the team and they also thought it too looked a little bit lighter. I don't think he's had it dyed. Maybe he's just spent a couple of weeks in the sun. Certainly in the off-season he was pictured on a boat or two. Well, Carlos just came past and I asked him had he dyed his hair, and he stopped and said, why? And I said, a couple of my followers suggested that might have happened. He said, no. I said, maybe the sun? He said, yeah, possibly the sun from his time on board those boats over the off-season, so good on him. Now, if you haven't had a chance to see F1 the movie at a theatre, know that it's now available on Apple TV. I watched it the other night. Found myself at 1 hour, 8 minutes and 56 seconds. Even if you've seen the movie, I think it's worth getting the video, which I bought for 29 Aussie dollars on Apple. There's a whole lot of extra content on there that I found thoroughly enthralling. And speaking of Apple, they are serious when it comes to Formula One, because it looks like for $150 million, they will get the rights to the sport next year in the US. At the moment, it's held by ESPN, who I believe are paying a lot less than that. Couldn't stump up any more cash, and that's left the door open for Apple to come in as the broadcaster, streamer in the US of A. Now let's talk odds of winning the championship, pretty much out of these two drivers behind me, Lando and Oscar. And Oscar is favourite, there's no doubt about that. I checked a couple of bookies today. Oscar was quoted as $1.60, Lando at $2.40. And for me, that is a big spread when it comes to a race where the leader, Oscar, is only 7 points in front, and there are still 10 races to go. Of course, the bookies aren't experts on this sort of thing, but they do know where the money is going and where it's coming from, and at the moment, the majority of it is going to Oscar Piastri. Of course, many of the drivers are on very strict diets. Apparently not so with Yuki Tsunoda, because this morning he came in eating a stroopwafel, or as the locals would say, a stroopwafel. There's actually a stand here in the paddock, and they're handing them out left, right and centre, along with bitterbol, which is a very tasty local treat. Now, it used to be that the measuring of the pit stops was done by a sensor in the ground, but those sensors have since been taken out. I asked a few of the teams how those pit stops are actually measured time-wise. There was a great deal of indecision. Best as I can understand, and the teams, it's done from a camera. Every team has had to have a camera put in above their pit box, which is accessed by Formula One management. That is used to determine how long a car is stationary. Although, a couple of the team members that I spoke to said they are critical of the times given out, because often they'll measure at 1.8, say, and they'll get their times back at 2 or 2.1. And as to how they measure it, it's done by when the jack goes up and when it goes down. And it goes down once all 4 of those people on the tyre guns have pressed the ready-to-go button on their gun. Once the last person presses it, the jack can drop. If we go back 12 months, this was Logan Sargent's last race. You'll remember that in qualifying he ended up binning his car in rather spectacular fashion, and that was the end of his career after the race anyway. But good to see him now back racing in the US. And one day maybe I'll get to have a chat with him and talk to him about what's happened post F1. Well, good people, this is the trophy that the winner of the F1 race on Sunday will receive. This is actually hand-painted. Is it the only one? No, there are 7 of them. And behind me is a gentleman who is hand-painting one here. It's a lengthy procedure and quite detailed, as you can see. And for the past 2 years, this company, Royal Delft, has provided these trophies. In fact, last year's, I believe, was artwork supplied by Robbie Williams, the singer. Now, a good friend of mine suggested I stay in Haarlem for the Zandvoort race. It's about a 20-minute drive, but I've not seen an atmosphere like this for a long time. It's a real buzz. There's so many eateries to choose from. Pedestrian streets, of course, with bikes everywhere. And while it reminds me a little bit of Paris, it also reminds me of the Adelaide Grand Prix going back in the 90s down at the end of town closer to the track. It had a similar buzz, but obviously with Aussie accents. As you probably know, the F1 drivers tend to stay in the best hotels when it comes to races. A lot of them stay at this one here. It is not the best hotel. It's an okay hotel, very old, daggy rooms, but it's right across the road from the track, and that's why it's so popular. One thing before I go, Alex Albon is having a jerk chicken wrap for dinner tonight here on Media Day at the Dutch Grand Prix. Before you go, could you please hit the like button? And for those not subscribed, here's your chance to make the world of difference by clicking that button. Thanks for watching, and stay passionate. So the stroopwafels are made just over here, and they're offered
Do you
to...
like stroopwafel?
Who doesn't like stroopwafels?
I know.
Dankjewel.
Enjoy.
One for us, huh?